Okay, let's talk about the Lenovo Legion 7i more in depth than before. Now, my last full review of the 7i was not this spec. It was a lower model, and it was a good value, I feel. Good device, something I can easily recommend to people. This particular model is not one that I necessarily am going to be recommending left and right because it is $3,000 and it is loaded to the brink with the highest, most powerful components in the mobile gaming laptop space. So we'll go through those specs. We'll talk about the overall build quality and what a day in the life looks like. So let's start with specs. Number one, this display, 15.6 inches, 1080p, HDR ready. The CPU is an Intel Core i9, and the GPU is an NVIDIA RTX 2080 Super Max-Q. And then finally, 32 gigs of RAM. So this is definitely loaded and ready to kick some butt. So I/O, very impressive. On the left side, you have two USB-C ports and a headphone jack. On the right side, a single USB-A. Now, also on the sides are cooling vents, right? So you have exhaust on the sides. Those do light up. The USB-A on the right side also lights up. On the back, that's where the majority of the I/O can be found. HDMI, USB-A, Ethernet, another USB-A, and a proprietary power plug. There's also a Kensington lock. Now, the thing about the I/O is that since the majority is in the back, it actually makes it easier for cable management. And this might be a repeat of things you've heard before, but since not a lot of laptop manufacturers actually do this, it's still somewhat of a novelty, at least in my opinion, so I want to call that out. I love that Lenovo does that. There's some little touches that Lenovo's baked into this design that I think otherwise goes unappreciated. So first of all, in the Legion brand, there's this particular icon that they use over the letter O in Legion, and it's a Y. I don't know what the history of the Y is. It might be that the previous models before they had Legion were the Y series. So you had the IdeaPad Y720 and the Y920. That 920 is a beast, by the way, 10 pounds. Unbelievable, great machine, but 10 pounds. So anyhow, so with this one though, Lenovo's kind of baked that icon in different places and the logo itself. So first of all, on the hinge, right at the ends of each hinge, each side of the hinge, there's the Y logo right on that circle. It's a nice little touch. I love that they did that. And then also on the lip of the lid, right where you would put your fingers so you can open up the display, the Legion brand, like the Legion name is just printed right there, and you can feel it, you can see it. I think it's a really nice but subtle touch. So now, in addition to all those little touches, they also did some really smart design choices. I think putting the ports in the back is one. Bringing the display closer to the user is also, I think, a nice touch. And then the lighting. So the lighting here is not bashful in any way. You have, of course, the keyboard lights up. We'll get to that in a moment. But also there's lighting around the base, the majority of the base of the laptop. There's lighting on the vents on the sides, the back, the USB port. There's lights everywhere. Even the Legion Y I mentioned lights up and glows. There's also a really cool subtle lighting touch that Lenovo baked into this. What I should do is time it to see how long it lasts, but along the back where those ports are, there's icons or logos for each of those ports, like the HDMI brand, the USB brand icon. They're on the top. So when you're leaning over your laptop to plug those things in, eventually you'll probably memorize where they are, like muscle memory, but you don't have to lean all the way over or spin the laptop around to find those ports because they're labeled. You'll have to remember the orientation, of course, but hey, you got a 50-50 shot, so you'll figure it out pretty quickly. So I think that's a nice touch. And what I meant by lighting staying on is that when the laptop is in sleep, it still shows. So it's a nice little subtle light. You might be wondering about battery life with all these lights and all this power, and that's a very legitimate question to have. So here's been my experience thus far. I start my morning around 6 a.m. with my coffee, and I'm rocking and rolling doing some work. And my morning work routine is primarily email and the Microsoft Office suite and web browsing. The battery drains very quickly. I mean, it's crazy. So within, I don't know, an hour, my battery will drop 30-40%. That's substantial. I did a little bit of research, and of course the lighting for the keyboard is going to take up a lot of battery power, but it's not just the fact that there is lighting. The Corsair iQ application, according to some users, is a particular drain on the battery. So I uninstalled it, and I did see an immediate performance boost in terms of battery. So I'd say it slowed things down by a solid 30%. So instead of dropping 40% in an hour, I was dropping more like, 30% in an hour. Well, that's definitely a big improvement, but I don't feel like it's enough to disable or no longer use that iCUE software. So I've reinstalled it, and I'm looking for another solution to the battery drain, because it does seem a little bit strange that this particular model would drain so quickly. That GPU should be turned off. It should be using the Intel GPU when I'm just in Windows, and I usually have the brightness down to about 50 or 75%, and the keyboard turned off in the morning during that routine. So, and hey, it's a gaming laptop, right? So I'm gonna have it plugged in when I'm gaming anyhow, so maybe I shouldn't baby the battery too much. But if you do wanna baby the battery, there is the Lenovo Vantage software that comes pre-installed. And with that software, you can tune several different settings. And one of the most important ones, in my opinion, is the battery. So you can either do rapid charging, which is very cool, or in addition to that, you can have a hybrid mode that protects your battery. So it protects it from being over abused, and it doesn't allow it to charge past 60%. Lenovo's not alone in doing this. Other manufacturers have done it, notably Asus. But hey, it's there, it's available to you if you want to use it, and if not, you can treat it like any other laptop. Now, historically, when I've used beast mode laptops like this, such as that old 920 I mentioned with a full-size 1070 in it, I usually just had it plugged in all the time. Even my Razer Blade 15, I've had it for 2 years, it's mostly been plugged in all the time, overnight, during the day, when I'm not at home, when I'm using it, just plugged in. And I'm not a battery expert, but the battery life is still good on that Blade, so I'm not too worried about abusing the battery here, and just keeping it plugged in, keeping iCUE installed, and really taking advantage of what iCUE has to offer. So before I stray too far from lighting and talk more about the keyboard and stuff, let's kind of subtly dip into that. So you'll notice this rainbow spiral that's happening on the keyboard. And then you probably can't see it too well, but there's a spiral happening with everything that can possibly light up on this device. It's a little bit unfortunate, but without Corsair iCUE, you can't in any way adjust the lighting other than dimming it or turning it off. To me, that's a problem. I don't love the spiral. I'm a static color person, and if it turns out that, hey, I changed my tune, I want to just have that extra 10% or 15% of battery life, so I'm gonna kill Corsair iCUE, I'd like to at least change this to a static color, but there's no way to do it that I've found. Maybe there is a version of Lenovo Vantage that I could find that will let me do it, but as of now, I can't find any controls for it. Also, even with iCUE installed, which it's installed right now, you can see I'm not logged into the machine. It's still in spiral mode. So when you're logged out, I'm not even logged out, I'm just locked out, right? Because I have to type in my password. Even when I'm not in Windows, Corsair iCUE is just not doing anything, right? It's not functioning. So all of my settings go away and it reverts back to this. Now that might sound like not a big deal, but when you spend $3,000 on a laptop, you want that. So as you can see, I've logged into my machine, and now, boom, Corsair iCUE has restarted, and I'm back to my single color pattern that I wanted from the very beginning. So that's a bit of a miss. $3,000 is a lot of money to spend, and I'm not gonna run out and tell you how to manage your own money. Do it your way, right? But if I'm spending $3,000 on a laptop, the specs make sense to me, but some of these other things don't, right? Like the Corsair iCUE not really being fully integrated into the laptop, but also there's no Windows Hello. I love that Lenovo included a Think shutter to cover the camera when it's not in use, but please, Windows Hello should be a no-brainer. I mean, there are $700 Microsoft laptops that use Hello. There are inexpensive Lenovo laptops that use Windows Hello. I mean, even my tablet, my Android tablet, has a form of Windows, has facial recognition. So that's a bit of a miss, and I'm disappointed in that. And I do have a feeling that once my final review comes out, there's going to be a few of those moments where I'm like, for $3,000, it should have done this or it should have done that. And that's probably the way that any $3,000 product, computer product review is going to go anyway. So it's not really a diss on Lenovo. It's just there is a point of diminishing returns, and it probably starts at around $2,000. Now, that's anecdotal. I've reviewed a lot of laptops. I've bought a lot of laptops, but I haven't done enough research to really claim that that's when the point of diminishing returns kicks in. Also, it is somewhat relative to the person and their use cases. Some people need very expensive machines for the type of work that they do. If you're a gamer, so if you're like me, I play games maybe 30 minutes to an hour a day. That's it. I used to play a whole lot more, but now I've got a family and I work a lot, so I don't really have time for it. And most of my gaming time, honestly, is spent reviewing a laptop or reviewing a game. We do that too here at Geeks Worldwide. So anyhow, I guess all of that is to say, the performance you're going to get from this may not rock your world. Here's what I have so far to tell you. Witcher 3, using NVIDIA GeForce Experience recommended settings, which is basically everything on high and 1080p. I'm getting somewhere between 95 and 105 frames per second. And with Assassin's Creed Valhalla is closer to 70. The big difference though between those two is that with Valhalla, the fans are, they're loud, and I'm getting somewhere around 51 decibels in terms of sound. And then with Witcher 3, it's closer to 49, 48. Sometimes it'll ramp up. Witcher's a little bit all over the place in terms of the frames. I mean, not all over the place, within that range of like 90 to 105. But the Valhalla is pretty consistent around 65, 70 frames per second, but the fans are really going bananas. So it's not too loud. I mean, it's a gaming laptop. It's going to be loud. It's not as loud as my Razer Blade 15 is. It is 2 years old. But maybe you might think, for $3,000, I wish I'd get better performance, or for $3,000, I wish it were quieter. So there's still some tuning and tweaking that I have to do. I'm still getting used to some of the tweaking capabilities of Lenovo Vantage as it relates to this laptop. So again, not final review, not final data, but I'll leave you with this. This is actually a really fun laptop to use. The keyboard, I think, is really very comfortable. It's a little bit mushy on the landing like the Predator, but I like that in a keyboard. I think the design is unique and awesome. And if you are Lenovo and you're the biggest manufacturer of laptops in the world, you're probably going to make a spec like this, regardless of how big the market is for something like this. So I'm not in any way dissing Lenovo for making it. I'm really glad that I have it. I think it's really fun to use. But the thing I'll leave you with is more like a request. If there are particular games that you want reviewed, let me know. There's been comments on previous videos related to these laptops, these meaning like, higher end gaming laptops. Someone requested Jedi Fallen Order. I will get you some specs, some details on that. Also, Doom Eternal, I'll do. You already heard about Witcher 3 and Assassin's Creed. I'll include those in the final review. If there are other games or synthetic benchmarks that you want done and reported on, let me know. Even if it's just for fun, right? You don't actually plan to buy the laptop, but you're just curious, let me know. As long as it's something I can afford to do, I'll do it. And I'd be happy to interact with you guys on that, either in the comments or in our Discord server. Okay, that was a long video without pausing. So I'm gonna go drink some water, and I look forward to your comments on this one. Hopefully you found it helpful, and I'll aim to do a final review early in December. So we have a few weeks to have this dialogue, and yeah, hope you found it helpful. Thanks.